Today we're doing a data deep dive update and some market predictions for one of the most talked about housing markets in all of Central Florida. We're talking about Windermere. When you think of Windermere, you're thinking lakefront estates, you're thinking celebrity neighbors, you're thinking room and space and lower density and kind of like a laid back style of living, but in the center of everything. And if you live here now, if you're considering making Windermere your home in the future, you're going to want to pay attention to this update because there's a lot of news surrounding Florida. There's a lot of stories saying Florida's at 11-year high and we have new construction ramping down on their prices and giving away houses for free and everything's a bargain. And more headlines saying it's really tough to sell a house in Florida. But is it? Real estate is local and every market functions differently. And it's with that in mind that we're going to jump in and get very clear on how the housing market looks right now in Windermere. So let's get into the update. All right, as we dive into the update for Windermere, let me offer you some context. Now, what you're looking at right here is the most recent month of data for the entire Central Florida region, okay? You can see this is a middle shot way up here in Ocala, Villages, probably pushing towards Gainesville. The map isn't the greatest, it's just a purple blob on top of the state. But it goes all the way down here to the southeast regions, all of Tampa, Hillsborough, Sarasota, you've got way down, almost probably to like Northport area. This is enormous region. But look what we've got across the middle part of the state. Unsold inventory, down versus a month ago, up 15% over a year ago, which, my friends, is way lower than the national numbers right now. So like, oh, there's more unsold inventory. Yeah, but it's not trending as badly as everywhere else. Look at this. This is also going to contribute to this number narrowing further. Unsold inventory is likely to keep going down. How do we know? Because new listings are going down across the middle of the state. So less people are putting homes on the market. We're seeing a lot of news about delisting. People are just saying, I'll pull my house back. So then all of a sudden your inventory shrinks. Pending sales, buyers are backing off last month versus a year ago. So we had less people putting homes under contract, which means we're going to have less closings in the near future. It'd be interesting to see how this holds in August as we see our 30-year fixed rates going down, okay? So listings sold, again, they're down. No surprise because your pendings have been down. And it's getting a little bit longer to sell a house. Average sale price is down 3% across this entire mid-Florida area. Now, let's talk about some other news stories, okay? So this is recent. We have new construction premiums hitting an all-time low. So across the entire country, the amount of money that a builder is selling a new house for versus your resale competitor, gap is shrinking, okay? Gap is shrinking. Keep in mind, if the builder has to sell the home, if they're very motivated, they're going to put a bunch of incentives on top of that. And people think the builders put incentives on homes at all times. That is not true. They put some incentives, but the big juicy ones you hear about in the news, those come on when the builder's really motivated and they have to sell the house. But look at this. The gap between a residential home with a builder and the resale existing inventory is now less than 8%, which is a record low. Okay. Fascinating. Okay. So look at this. The median price also holds steady. It's essentially flat from a year ago. So that's interesting news. Let's look at this. Florida's housing market is showing signs of life. Here's why. So here's an update. They cited a widely reported article from Pulte's most recent Pulte Homes, one of the largest builders in the nation, built very, very active here in Central Florida. Their orders are up. They have an increase in new orders by 2%, which is very important because we are a fast growing market. We have like 1,500 people moving in a week. There's a lot of folks scratching their heads saying, how do we have, the inventory levels that we have right now? We have all these people moving here. I'm like, well, you got to understand this new construction in Central Florida is wild. Like they are building apartments and houses as fast as they can in this region. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that statement. Look at some of the articles. You got to be careful what you read. This is put out in the last 3 or 4 days, so I want to cover it here. Florida residents struggle to sell homes. Is the state migration tide finally turning? So they go on and on. They talk about this one couple that moved here from Long Island from 2020, and lo and behold, they want to go back to New York, apparently, or somewhere else. And look what they say. We figured this time it would take a month or 2 to sell. And now it's 3, and it's been almost 6 months after time has passed. They bury way, way, way down in the article. I mean, literally at the end before all the ads start firing up. Our realtor warned us that the market was a little saturated and that condos aren't selling as quickly. Okay. It's a key piece of information, folks, because it could have said Florida's condo owners are struggling to sell homes because look at the data. Now, this is statewide. Okay. I'm showing you an entire graph of the entire state. Florida's condo market is 10 months of supply. It's actually coming down. You can see it kind of hit 10 months and now it looks like it's kind of fading a little bit, right? And this is kind of interesting because if you look at the history of time going back to 2018, pre-pandemic, look at it. It's been around 6 months of supply. Jared, what am I looking at? If you stop listing new condos in Florida, it would take you 10 months to sell them all off. That's a high and elevated number. That's what they're talking about in this headline. Hey, I'm interrupting myself to ask you, are you thinking of buying or selling a home? Make one call, that's all, and put my 23 years of experience and nearly 4,000 sold homes to work for you.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
But surprise, let's pull up the single family housing for all of Florida. Ta-da, look what it is. It's 5.5 months in flat. So just like the condo market hit a ceiling and kind of is turning down for the first time in a long time, by the way, you can see there's not really a bunch of straight line moves sideways, except if you come back here like years ago. This is back in November of 2022. So it seems like the growth of unsold supply in Florida for both housing and condos looks like it's abating a bit. And by the way, if you look at the difference, you have around a 5.5 month of supply here. Pre-pandemic, we were sitting around 4, even as high as about 5 months of supply in the past for single family homes in the state of Florida for months of supply. Again, months of supply is a perfect way to understand the health of the economy. It's an idea of measuring both supply and demand at the exact same time. Okay. It's a measure of, again, we stop listing houses. How long does it take to sell them off? If that number goes really high, like when condos go over 10 months of supply, that becomes a concerning factor. Now, we're not going to do it for sake of time, but I bet you if we pull the condo market, as you see that month of supply hitting way high in Florida, going condos, all the way to 10 months, higher than in history. Most likely you saw a softening at the same time of either the median sale price or average sale price or both. And at some point, that price becomes interesting again. And now people all over the place are now going, I want to go buy a condo. I want to buy an investment property in Florida. And that's happening a lot now. So that's why you're going to start to see some of this stuff start to correct. Next chart we're looking at is median sale price. You can see for the history of time going 2018 to 2019, most of the marketplace here was in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. As we got into 2022 and 23, you had bottoms in this market in the sixes and tops pushing up into right around the $1 million mark. And then you can see really as of late that there's really no time where the marketplace is falling even under the $800,000 mark. You have to go all the way back to around early or mid 2024 to see a bottom under 800. Okay. And actually this is a bottom under 700 back here in January of 2024. But like with most luxury markets, Winter Park is the same thing. You have these very big swings from one month to the next. And ultimately you have to kind of just pull back. That's why it's really good to kind of look at these in a 1-year trend and just see how does things look. You know, if you cut a line down the middle, where is it heading? Because that's kind of the truth of things. If you look, even going back 6 months, it's mostly positive territory against prior year even. But again, largely, I would say this is a stable, flat, even market. Okay. All right. Next up, we have active inventory. This is unsold homes. This is what every crash bro, folks that are crying wolf on the internet, Chicken Little, all that stuff on the housing market. This is the thing they stress about the most is there's a run up of unsold inventory. So much so the buyers cannot purchase it all and prices come crashing down. Look at this. We're pre-pandemic levels. Back here, this is 2018 and 2019 in front of you. You have highs in Windermere at around 415 units. And then 2019 comes along, it's closer around 300 units. But again, 300 to 400 homes for sale in this housing market is kind of what we're used to. Look where we're at today, folks. We're hitting 215 units this summer. It's flat, okay? This is still about 40% smaller available unsold inventory sitting on the market. And we feel it as realtors. If we have people that want to relocate here, want to buy in Windermere, there's less for sale. Depends on where you're at in this housing market, but there's just less on the market for people to choose from. And then what happens is they go and pick somewhere else. By choice. They would love to live here, but the house they want doesn't exist on the market. But look at this. This, my friends, is the record low inventory. Okay. So like you had 400 units back here at the pandemic move when interest rates were super low, trading was crazy. People were multiple offers and everything. 60 housing units came up a little bit going into 2023 and into 24, but look how weak it is in summer. I mean, meaning between the amount of homes being put into the market and buyers absorbing them, apparently, because it's not on the market for sale. But let's take a look at those metrics to see, is there This much activity. Buyers are just picking off everything that's coming. Take a look. This is new pending sales, leading indicator of how many buyers are actively putting homes under contract. Now look, you can see, let's go back to January. January was plus 25. Then it was down 26 in February, wiped out the January gain. Then it's up 41%. Then it's up 37%. Then down 16, down 4. Okay. So overall, the market buyer activity is larger this year than prior year. But look at the pre-pandemic levels, much bigger market size. You saw the summer times back, 4 or 5 years ago, you were hitting 100 units every month or 80, 90 units, multiple months back to back. Look what it is now. Like, you're lucky if you get to 50 units on a single month, because this right here is way lower than the amount of supply turnover there used to be had in this area. There's less turnover, less supply, less homes to pick off of. But let's look at new listings. Are sellers starting to turn a corner and push more supply in this market in Windermere? Let's take a look. Again, you can see, look at pre-pandemic levels. You'd have single months where 140 houses would hit the market back in April of 2018. You had single months back in June of 19, midsummer, 115 units hit the market. Now, our biggest month this entire year so far is maybe 75, 80 units, okay? There's less supply. There's just a smaller economy overall. Now look at year to date. January, there were actually 9%, 10% less listings than prior year. February, 14% down. Then there was a 28% over last year, a 33% over last year, down 2 and up 15. This is fascinating because if you look at most of Florida, this month in January was enormously productive for new listings. For whatever reason, we passed an election cycle. There's a lot of things that people kind of, try and figure out why it happened. But we had a big time start of the year in terms of new supply. It just wasn't there for Windermere. So as a result, you don't have a huge supply chain here. Next up, we have closed sales. You can see going all the way back to January, most months were anywhere from 40 to 60 units. We obviously know that's a small number given history, but look at this. Every single month this year, the market has actually been larger. So there's been more transaction volume in 2025 than prior years. A little bit more growth, which is good. More economy taking place. So January plus 19, plus 14 in Feb, plus 2, plus 36% in April, plus 23% in May, and then it had a soft June falling 17%. But overall, more transaction volume increasing here in Windermere as far as closed sales are concerned. Now, the most fascinating part of the entire video, probably something I should have led with. I'm going to show you 2 interesting charts from a data source that I subscribe to behind a paywall called Reventure app. Take a look at this. This, my friends, is the price cut chart for Windermere. Look at that. Through the roof, okay? So you're dealing with probably a 7-year high. 36% of listings in this area are price cutting in order to sell. Now, this is a fascinating phenomenon because you just witnessed a marketplace that does not have an unhealthy high rate of supply. It doesn't have a anemic, terrible turnout in buyers. They're there. But look at that, okay? 36.6%. This is a phenomenon, right? Here's the deal. The Orlando metro entire area is right around 30%. Okay, so this isn't way over. This is 20% higher, and it's obviously surging. Let me show you one corresponding graph that will also, I think you'll find this interesting. Okay, if you're in Windermere, pay close attention. If you're planning on selling in Windermere, pay close attention. This is the median asking price year over year. Okay, this is what happens when people look at the data and bring their house to the market against a potential view that things are softer, okay? I'm looking around and I think people are asking too much. And again, keep in mind that these charts, when you're looking at luxury markets, they're schizophrenic. They don't follow paths. They have highs and lows and they're all over the board, but you can definitely follow trend. Okay. So look at trend. As of late, you can see that when this chart comes out like this, it's going down almost 21%, which again, take the data for what it is. This does not mean because people are asking 20% beneath last year that there's going to be a drop in price by 20%. There's zero correlation directly to what it's going to sell for. Okay. Understand this though. This tells us when this line starts to fall below the entire 8-year average that you see on the screen, because that's where this dotted line is. That tells us that people that are sitting there with their broker, and the broker is coming over to talk to them. We're sitting there with the seller and we go, Mr. Seller, take a look at all the data. They're underpricing. There's a chance that they're asking less than prior year. Okay. So they're not pricing above last year. They're pricing beneath last year, what they were selling for a year ago. Okay. Just tells us that there's a perspective that people have probably been asking too much. Like it's been starting too high. How do we know that? I just showed you a chart that shows 37% of the participants in the market here started at a number that wasn't successful. 1 in 3, actually more than 1 in 3, almost 40% went to a number and started the price at a number that the market denied and turned them down on, and they had to reduce. And eventually they sold. But the reality is, if we see a lot of that in the market, right? You look at all the comps around your house, you're about to bring your lakefront home to the market. Everybody else shot for the moon and end up on the market for a year and a half or 8 months or 4 months. And maybe that's quite a bit longer than your market supports. You sit there and look at the fact that the trajectory of their house led them to 4 price reductions in order to get out. You're probably going to modify where you start from. Okay. So ultimately, we're seeing that sellers are probably facing a little bit of a training process, an information system where they're going, this is not going to work unless I get a little bit more tight from the start. Sellers sometimes feel that we're still in 2021, okay, or 2020. There's sometimes a psychology around, hey, I just watched the real estate guide. He did data on Windermere, and he said there's nothing for sale. I can ask whatever I want. And buyers will stare you down in this market, okay? So that's what's happening right now. Buyers in this market will stare you down. They will compare you to the next market over. They'll compare you to 3 towns over, and they will buy the best opportunity for themselves. The marketplace has high demand for our area, especially in these established areas. This is where people, when they relocate here, they have good jobs, they're executives, whatever. This is where they want to live. But they are still leery about, what do I pay? I love the house, but what do I pay for it? So the buyers are sharpening their pencils no different than the sellers are. And a lot of the emotion that used to be in this real estate game has fallen out of it, right? And you can see this by pricing trends. It's very, very fascinating. So let me know what you are seeing in the comments. Are you seeing a lot of homes starting at some crazy number or number that is just unrealistic? Maybe you're watching homes around your area. Let me know in the comments what you're seeing out there. And also let me know in the comments which marketplace in Orlando I should do a data update on next.
When the housing market feels complicated, you need an expert by your side to make it simple and easy. Make one call, that's all, and put my 23 years of experience in nearly 4,000 homes sold to work for you.
Jared Jones is the way to go. Call 706-5000.
If you're in the Central Florida area and you're looking for a great church, I'd love for you to join me at the Grove Bible Chapel. Just visit joinmeatthegrove.com for full details.